Paramount Plus's Ren and Stimpy reboot has leaked, and I've seen the first 2 episodes, and I'm going to talk about them. Now, obviously, I cannot play clips of the Ren and Stimpy reboot. I would get in a lot of trouble, and they wouldn't like that. And I don't want to spoil it for people who are still watching this review for some reason but don't want to be spoiled. You're weird, but whatever, I love you. I'm not going to do that. And obviously, I wouldn't play clips of the original Ren and Stimpy because that wouldn't be fair. So, instead, during this video, instead of showing it, I'm going to play the most famous Ren and Stimpy ripoff, which was the Schmookums and Meat funny cartoon show. That's right. You are not going to see clips of Ren and Stimpy. You are going to see the most famous Ren and Stimpy ripoff, Schmookums and Meat funny cartoon show. Just to be clear. Okay, so this is not a joke. So first off, the one thing I noticed about this thing from the leak cuts, first thing I noticed is Ren and Stimpy is legendarily one of the first 3 Nicktoons. But when I watch this, it says MTV. It seems like this is not going to be a part of Nickelodeon. It's just an MTV thing, not a Nickelodeon thing. Now, Ren and Stimpy did play on MTV. It was not an MTV cartoon. I get what they're trying to do. So the first thing is they do kind of a weird version of the theme song that isn't the theme song, or that is the theme song but isn't. It's really weird watching this, because I think one thing that you can say about this is, look, Ren and Stimpy was the very first cartoon to really push a creator created by credit when it wasn't by someone who anyone had heard of before. Because obviously Mighty Mouse right before by Ralph Bakshi was really the first, but this is the one that really made the trend stick. Obviously that's John Kay, and nobody wants to be associated with that guy anymore. But I think not having a real sense of who, because this doesn't feel like an auteur show, much like when John Kay was involved or Bob Camp was involved. This feels like a corporately mandated reboot, and that just does not work with Ren and Stimpy. Now you're probably saying, oh, well, it had, if it didn't have the thing, but you couldn't sense it at all. And I think, like, I'm not saying I want a return to John Kay, and I think he sucks as a person, and what he did to that show and rebooted it twice. He had enough chances to get it right, and he failed both, so whatever. But I think not having even a Bob Camp or an idea, or having like a main auteur behind it, you can sense it. And Ren and Stimpy just doesn't work the way like Rugrats would in that example. Now, Rugrats, frankly, stunk a lot worse when its main creatives stopped working on it. And that's a whole drama, whatever, we won't get into. But I think the problem with this is Ren and Stimpy was sort of chaotic and weird, and you couldn't believe what you were seeing. And in this, I just feel like I'm watching a cartoon that was influenced by Ren and Stimpy and influenced by chaos, but is not chaotic itself. Now, some of the first ones, like them, like doing like they need to rent out, they need to make money off their apartment, they're gonna get kicked out, rent it to roaches and stuff like that. They make tons of money being slumlords for roaches. They have a thing like the screen time episode where he gives Stimpy a phone, but none of it feels like different. It just feels like I'm seeing sort of a bad rehash. And like there's even a scene, I think it's in the roach one, where Stimpy farts, but it doesn't feel like there's any reason for it. It's just like Stimpy just farts out of nowhere. And like that was never, like if Stimpy's gonna do that, he's like watching TV and it's part of the scene, it's part of the character, it makes sense. And that just felt like somebody said Stimpy should fart, and then he does. And like I understand people are like, everyone knew everyone's gonna be very hard on this show, but like I didn't really get a sense that they knew how to do a gross out cartoon anymore, because gross out is not the thing at all. For like, people do not like gross out stuff anymore at all. Like, that is not the sensibility we're on. As well as like they're not even very good at it, with one exception though. But they try to do like this clear toilet gag, which is just like strange. It's not even like good strange, it's just sort of like stupid strange or whatever. I don't get it. There was one thing that like I had lunch, I was eating lunch while I watched this, which is my fault. They did a thing called like milk with pulp in it, which generally made me gag. So good for you. I will not deny that you actually grossed me out, which is something I haven't seen since the original Ren and Stimpy. That was generally disgusting. So good. I've seen every John Waters movie. I grew up with Ren and Stimpy. You generally gross me the fuck out. Congratulations. Billy West is actually very good at Ren and Stimpy. He's an amazing voice actor. All due respect to him. But to me, it's like, if you had just made Ren and Stimpy by way of SpongeBob or something, sure, but this doesn't really work. It's like they didn't really think about how to update it necessarily. They do weird things, like I noticed Ren and Stimpy never live, their house is never the same. Like in the first one, they live in the city, then they live in this one house, and they live in a different house in another one. They keep switching that, I like that sort of chaos to it. And part of me is like, maybe this could have worked. But I do think Ren and Stimpy, regardless of what you think of John Kay or Bob Camp, who I don't know why you'd have any problems with him, is they had a strong auteur voice on it, and I do think this is a property that needs that. And whomever it would be, I don't know necessarily. I think Craig McCracken would probably do a great job or something like that, but I don't think anyone would honestly do that because of the legend behind it. So while I was watching it, I was thinking like, well, why do this other than Ren and Stimpy is very recognizable. You need to just save the brand at this point, because they tried rebooting it with Spike TV in the 2000s and that failed pretty tremendously. So you want to bring it back, but I don't think anyone came up with a good enough take other than we need to bring it back, which is the same thing with the Rugrats thing. It's like they didn't really think about what they were doing. They're like it just needs to come back, and I guess these are millennials now, but it just feels like they really hadn't thought it through necessarily and really thought about, Ren and Stimpy historically in television history is pretty significant in terms of animation's history. I know like John Kay sucks and I don't want to give him necessarily too much credit, but it really signified something. And to just go like, whatever, we're just rebooting it, it feels to me like, if you look at anything like the Felix the Cat of the 50s on TV, or like these kind of soulless versions of like the shitty Popeye show in the 50s or something, the ones that like no one wants to replay because they're just like not worth anything. And that's what it feels like with this Ren and Stimpy. It's just like, I can see moments of real inspiration and they could have done something, but like those were things made for both an extreme love of animation and weirdness and like playing with the form and stuff. And this just feels like, these are cartoon plots, here are characters, and Ren and Stimpy just doesn't really work with that. It really has to be its own thing. Like, there wouldn't be so much of our culture right now without this show, so I understand it's like central place with it. It just doesn't work. And it fundamentally, like, I think I can see moments of inspiration, and I hope, I really do hope they're able to do something with it. But like, you look at how Mike Judge really thought about Beavis and Butthead coming back and how smart that reboot is. And I'm not saying I don't want you to don't bring John Kay back. Please do not bring John Kay back. Like, I don't want him to have a credit. That's not what I'm saying. But think of a way that Ren and Stimpy works in the 2000s, or 2020s. Because when I watch this show, I cannot tell you while I'm watching it why they should be there. And when I watch Beavis and Butthead, the new one, and I watch other reboots, or X-Men 97, I'm not thinking that. And as soon as I'm thinking, what are they doing here? Why would you reboot this at this point? You failed. Because it's like as soon as I'm questioning you and there's not an answer, I'm not like, whoa, they did such a cool, oh my God, I can't wait to watch the next one. Like, you didn't think of that. And there's times like Master of the Universe, I don't think about that as much, but they attempted something. They did not attempt anything in this other than they did new Ren and Stimpy. But why? And they could not tell me, and I could not see this as a viewer. So I would say, like, this was, I wouldn't honestly release this. I would, if you want to release it because you spent money on it, that's cool. But I think they need to think about what they're actually doing with it. And as of right now, it's like, okay, I mean, it's sort of like, why is this an MTV show? Like, why is anything a brand on any of these streaming services? They have all these brands. They don't know why they're doing them anymore. It just feels like this is how the corporate machine works, and this is what they made. But it just feels like they're just checking off boxes and there's no soul behind it. And even if the soul behind Ren and Stimpy was like dark and evil and honestly pretty horrible, even this feels like devoid of any real sense of humanity. And I think Ren and Stimpy needs that, fortunately or unfortunately. And this just does not have anything worthwhile behind it. I would honestly, much like the recent Rugrats reboot, I would say it's kind of artistically a complete failure, but it did gross me out once, so I'll give it credit for almost making me throw up.